someone who took a lot of effort after hours from her full-time job to go ahead and write a book on the topic. Just things for people in there to let you know where we are. Medically, we do have some research going on with parts of the inner called the utricle. I believe that has a lot to do with VH. As I mentioned in the other room, I also think there still needs to be work done on the orthopedic side dealing with physical therapy, chiropractor, massage, because you know a lot of the vertical heterophoria patients, they walk around with their head tilted a little bit, and even though you straighten it out with Prism, the muscles and spine probably don't get all the way back to normal. And you know, one of the questions I ask is when people get better and you give them a vision questionnaire, they get their Prism lenses and they're 50 to 80% better. I'm the troublemaker. I'm like, well, what about the other 20% that's there? And so I'm wondering whether or not if we do some stuff to the neck and spine, whether we can get better. So that's looking forward to the future. I think we're going to give this over to Sherry, who's the one who actually put all this together in her after hours, just like all the rest of us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosner. First of all, I wanted to say that I really appreciate how candid and intimate the interviews were that all of the patients were able to have with me. None of you guys had met me yet. You knew nothing about me, but you were really honest and open about what you had been through, what your experiences were, how you had been told that it was all in your head, you were crazy, how you had been medicated. And a lot of you did want to give up hope, but there was something in you saying just one more try, maybe one more doctor might be able to make the difference for me. What I wanted to share with you is, as Dr. Rosner was saying, it was very serendipitous the way we met. I'm originally from Michigan, but I now live in the Arizona area. And I have now for the last 7 years. And I happened to be on a plane from Arizona coming to Michigan to visit family and friends. Now, you have to understand that Dr. Rosner, who's married to Dr. Debby Feinberg, he's very persistent. So he sat next to me on the plane, and I was already going in my mind, you know, how many family members I'll be able to visit. You have to travel to different cities, and I'm like, this is just going to be overwhelming. And he started talking to me about this vertical heterophoria, which, of course, I knew nothing about, never heard anything about it, anything like that. And he saw that I sometimes tilted my head. And so he started giving me this survey verbally. And he's asking me things like, you know, do you get anxious when you're in crowds? And I'm thinking, maybe I just don't like people. Do you have double vision? Do you get headaches and things like that? And I found myself going, yeah. And by the time I got to the 6th, yes, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I don't know this guy. Why am I giving him all this information? So he said to me, he started telling me about the difference that Dr. Debbie was able to make with her patients in the clinic. And he said, how long are you going to be in Michigan? And I just happened to have a 10-day stretch that I was going to actually be visiting during that particular time period. And so I told him that, and he said, do you mind if I have my wife come back here and talk to you, and she can tell you really about how it is, how she works with the patients? And I'm thinking, if she's less persistent than you, yeah. That'll work. So they switched seats. And Dr. Debbie came, and she told me about all the work she was doing. And they both could tell I was kind of skeptical because, you know, you say people come in with a cane or a wheelchair, and they're walking out, and I'm going, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And she said, we really would just like to get this information in a book. And I said, oh, I just happen to be an author of 5 books so far, and that sounds like a project I can probably, you know, take a look at. And so they said, do you have any time where you can come by and take a look and see what she does? And I actually wound up going 2 days during the time that I was in Michigan that time. So it was a few family members I didn't see, but that was fine. But I was able to actually see and talk to some of the patients, and I'm gonna tell you guys, I couldn't believe it. I literally could not believe the difference that she was able to make with the patients that had come in. And some of the patients that had talked to me were past patients of hers, so they told me about all the other ordeals that they had gone through prior to finding out about vertical heterophoria and what it was. So one of the things that I did share with some of you when I interviewed you was that I too had quite a few problems that I'd never ever saw as problems. Now, most of you probably would. If you're walking down the hall and you're knocking paintings off the wall, you might think that's a problem. I just figured I'm just walking too close to the wall. And then I also had a problem with getting on escalators. And I didn't know it at the time, but of course it had to do with my depth perception, but especially if I was in the airport, because then you've got a suitcase. Were you there when I fell down the stairs at the airport, Heather? Oh, okay. So anyway, I'm going up the escalator. I'm always nervous about it because you got to get your suitcase on one step, and then you've got the step, and then you got to hold the rail. And one time I was trying to do all of that and coordinate it and fell backwards in the airport. with my suitcase and all. So, of course, the security came over and they were like, do you want to fill out a report? I said, yeah, an embarrassment one, okay? No, I'm okay. Just let me get on my plane. So it were a lot of things that they brought up to me that I hadn't even realized were problems. Now, the funny thing about this is, after I'd gotten my examination, and they sent me the glasses, because remember, I'm from Arizona, so I wasn't able to stay to actually have the glasses, to take them back with me. About a month after I had been wearing them, I got called into my supervisor's office. And he didn't know I had gone to Michigan and got glasses or know anything about vertical heterophoria or anything like that. And he said, I got some exciting news for you. And I'm like, a bonus? He said, no, but whatever you're doing, continue to do, because your error rate has dropped dramatically. I didn't even know I had an error rate, okay? So it was really nice to be able to do that. And just so you know, I work for a mutual fund company, and we work 11-hour days. So I worked 4 days a week, 11-hour days. And when I first met Dr. Rosner, and he asked me how long would it take to do the book, I said 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks. Send me the patients' names. I'll do the interviews. We'll put it in the book, and we'll get it online. And he goes, it might take a little bit longer than that. And I was like, no, I talk fast, and I'll just tape it, and we'll get it together. 18 months later, after working with all of you, because we had the 3-hour time difference from Arizona and sometimes 2 hours, and coordinating your schedules and your families with you and all of that. But it was such a beautiful project for me to be a part of, and I really feel it was a pleasure and a privilege to have worked with all of you. And I don't want to just address the patients. Sometimes your spouses talked with me. Sometimes your kids had to kind of be quiet while you did your interview. It's a lot of work with a lot of people, and we really appreciate all of you being a part of this project. It's a lot bigger than what any of us ever thought it would be, and I'm sure, as Dr. Debbie has said, the book has legs, and so we will be able to get this information out to all of the important people, and everyone's important, but I mean the media, the doctors, the optometrists, and other people that they're planning to train, so that this work not only gets the information that needs to be out, but other people who may have symptoms of vertical heterophoria are able to recognize that, or recognize it in their family members. And then I didn't want to stay too long, but another part that I would like to be interested in is that, of course, this isn't recognized through the health care facilities as far as insurance goes. And a lot of families, these glasses and doing the exams can be pretty expensive. So part of that piece is to be able to include that with your health care that you have at work and other places, because they do have vision, and they just haven't recognized vertical heterophoria. So we do have a ways to go. But as Dr. Arthur Rosner has said, since we have both of them here today, I hope that we'll be able to see major differences in our lifetime. And I really think, as Dr. Mark Rosner has said, that with today's technology, we do have the resources available to be able to make that difference and be able to get that push out there and get the word out there so that it is nationally known. Thank you. And I don't know if all of you guys heard Dr. Debbie. What she wanted me to share was some of the emotional connections that I made with the patients here, because some of the stories were so heart-wrenching that sometimes when I would listen to the tape so that I can transcribe it, I would just stop it and cry. And I was about to cry I was crying today when Joe Horvath was reading his piece, because I even talked to people that I work at and that I work with in Arizona, and they're like, how could these people have been that debilitating, and glasses make that much of a difference? But when people aren't able to go to drive and they no longer are able to work, and as Carl Fansel was saying, they lose their job, their house, sometimes your marriage falls apart, all these time goes by and you don't know what's really wrong with you. People are telling you it's you, you're imagining things. It was just hard for me to hear. And for some of the older patients who where years ago none of this information was available and we didn't have the technology that we have, they were mislabeled as, just being lazy students who did not want to read. Just the difference that it would have made for them had this information been available when they needed it, and had other people been trained to recognize that and be able to diagnose it. And even with the patients who told me I had prism glasses and they didn't work for me, and so why would, when I was told about what vision specialist does, why would I have thought that would make a difference? But it does make a difference. You have to be able to have a doctor that knows how to work with vertical heterophoria and how to work with the prisms and how to do the minute, accurate testing that needs to be done in order for each of you to be able to have exactly what you need so that your symptoms can either be eliminated or, decrease. So it was very heartbreaking and heart-wrenching for me, but I enjoyed every moment of this project. We're talking with all of you, getting to hear your stories, and I'm so happy that I get to see you face to face. I really appreciate that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mark Rosner, Dr. Mark Rosner.
Thank you.